Welcome back, everyone, to the Frosty Canucks podcast. I'm your host, Jason, along with Frosty.
Chives.
Chives are great on a lot of food.
That's my cat's name.
You have a cat
now. Yes. The short version of the story for people who don't follow me on Twitter. 2 weeks ago, I guess 3 weeks by the time the podcast goes up, it's the second time I'd seen this stray cat on the walking route that Miranda and I take on the weekends when we go for walks. Because there had been a 3-week gap between when we saw her the first time and the second time, I decided that this must be a stray cat. She also looked a lot rattier the second time we saw her, so I decided to adopt her. I've been to the vet. She doesn't have any kind of tagging, so ostensibly she's mine now. We've spent some time looking on a local lost pet site to see if anyone was looking for her. She's got no chip. She didn't have a collar on. She hasn't been spayed or neutered or whatever the fuck you do to female cats once you get them fixed.
She is 100% unknown.
Yeah, she's my cat now. So that's cool.
What would you do if the owner actually came back?
Let's tell them to go fuck themselves because they left their cat outside for over a month and let it develop a health issue that I'm currently treating.
Fair enough. This is mine now.
Yeah, basically. People saw the photo. Her eye was goobery up. I'm not going to get into the specifics on the podcast, but her eye was all fucked up. And we're currently dealing with some pills and some eye drops to get that sorted out. The first time we saw her, we could kind of see that starting, and the fact that it was so much worse the second time we saw her 3 weeks later, I was like, okay, this cat is clearly on the streets now. But she's so friendly and social, so she was definitely somebody's pet beforehand. I just don't know, what happened. Miranda and I both checked, and we haven't found anything on, the lost pet sites for where I live, any descriptions or pictures that resemble what the cat looks like, so I don't know what her life was like before, but now she's my cat, so she seems relatively happy in my apartment.
She got enough space? I mean, I guess it's a cat.
I think so. This apartment's fucking bigger than I need, so I hope the cat has enough space. She's 1/10 my size.
Well, you know how they cats like to run back and forth through almost every single room really quickly.
Yeah, well, that's what the laser pointer's for. I'm glad that my apartment's mostly open, so it makes using the laser pointer very easy.
Has she successfully caught the laser pointer yet?
Technically, yes, because of me being not fast enough with it. But she's always has this look of what the hell whenever that happens.
Pure bliss.
Well, she's just always confused because she's I should have had it, and then it's not caught. It's a light, right? So, but yeah, I always try to usually play with something physical afterwards so that she doesn't get depressed because she literally cannot catch the laser pointer. Usually plugged it in to charge it up, and she came over oh, we get to play with the laser pointer again? I was no, we don't. Doing the podcast now, that's why I ran you around. See here, what if I throw the mouse toy? No, she's not interested in that. Okay. Oh, whatever. See, I've got a cat now.
Very cool. I'm more of a dog person, so...
Yeah, I know. Your wife, as soon as I said I got a cat, your wife was like, dogs are better. So...
Yeah, she didn't congratulate you. She just said, fuck you, dogs
yeah,
are better.
basically, she's just fuck you, dogs are better, yeah.
Get a dog.
Yeah, I know. Well, whatever. I feel like I got a cat in the most me way possible, where it's I just found this stray on the fucking side of the road, and I was okay, this is the second time I've seen you. I'm gonna adopt you now because I feel kind of bad for you.
I mean, Sarah and I want to do a rescue at some point when we have enough space for a dog. It's just where we live. It would not be a good environment for it.
Yeah, I get that people like puppies and kittens because they're cute, but just get a rescue instead. They will love you a lot faster than a puppy or a kitten will.
No kidding. And most of the time they already have their shots and everything done, so you don't have to pay for that. You just have to pay for the adoption.
Yeah,
it's actually cheaper in the long run.
I don't have that benefit. Chives is
Nope.
I think she's between around a year old, or maybe not even a year old. She has not had any of her stuff done, so I am paying through the nose for that right now. At least thankfully I work a job where that's not an issue. So, Anyway, video games.
Yep, video games. On the week of our recording, May 27th, everyone decided in the games industry to blow their load.
Yeah, E3 is happening now instead of in the middle of June.
Yeah. I guess without really having E3 last year, it was just, this was kind of bound to happen.
Well, I mean, the games industry still, people across the industry still announce things in and around June. So it's you didn't need the actual trade show to happen, people recognize like, oh, this is the time when everyone's paying attention for game announcements, so you can just announce whatever the fuck you want whenever you want through whatever channel, and people will, at least some people will pay attention and it'll be reported on, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the quieter month of the year. We've always had the Brocktober from like September to December to the holiday season, and then we've slowly migrated a lot of the releases that either get delayed or just figure that I'm going to do better in the earlier half of the year, like from January to May. So, but always summer's really quiet. And like a lot of that has to do with the fact that like school's wrapped up for the year, so people are doing stuff outside, like, or have like their summer jobs, so they don't have as much time for gaming. So yeah.
I was gonna say, you'd think that people would release more games in the summer on the basis of the fact that kids are at home and their shitty parents don't want to have to deal with them.
At least in my mind, they have like the ability to go outside and do stuff. Like, whereas in winter, especially up here, you don't really have much luxury for doing stuff outside other than like skiing and snowboarding.
I guess that's true. Although with COVID, that's not really a thing, right? I guess the shitty parents will still send their kids outside anyway.
Either the parents have gotten used to it, or the parents just like, please end my suffering.
But anyway, on that basis,
yes.
there's some E3 news that's already happened. So I wasn't super duper paying attention to most of it. Jason, did you want to like talk about some of the announcements that happened over the last couple of days?
We got release dates for the Pokemon games.
Okay,
that was earlier this week.
Yeah, so sorry, sidebar for a second. So we have E3 predictions in my group of friends. I had the date. We don't require being specific enough to like having the exact date. So I'm like, Pokemon...
The month?
Yeah, it's like I said that Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl will be... The trailer will be showing off at Nintendo's whatever the fuck, and then they're November 2021 as a release date. And I looked at the calendar and I'm like, for like an aside for myself, I'm like, it'll be November 19th. 2021. It's always the fucking third Friday of November that Pokemon games come out. It's been that way for years. If it doesn't come out on the third Friday in November, it comes out in like fucking March. And that's true for almost 100% of the releases, especially true of the releases over like the last 10 years, for which I think a Pokemon game has released every year in the last 10 years, or just about. I guess if you count like the Sword and Shield DLC, I believe that statement is true, and the DLC is kind of like an extra game instead of releasing like a third version.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was kind of pissed off about that. We hadn't started tallying the vote, like the points yet, because not everyone had their predictions in. So I actually... Yeah, you're one of them. So I actually had to redo that. I don't get credit for that point, even though I got that right.
To be fair, I was told I had a way later due date.
Yeah.
And that's now changed to tomorrow.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the issue is that in the past, we've set it so that when E3 kind of officially started, that was when we'd start tallying the points. And then this year, because like last time we did this, some people lost out on some points that they should have earned because of stuff going off a little bit early. This time I was like, okay, let's make it go out a week before. So like June 5th will be the cutoff date. But then apparently everyone decided that E3 started on May.
It started in May for some strange reason.
Yeah. May 25th or whatever. So at this point, it's just like, okay, everyone who's not done their predictions, please do their predictions, and we'll start tallying as soon as the final prediction's in. Because it's like, I think 3 or 4 of us have already had to change at least one thing, which is ridiculous. So
sorry about that.
That is what it is. It's fine. We're adapting as the situation changes, right?
Yeah. Next year it'll be in April.
Yeah, fucking shit. Might as well be. Get Charlie to make the spreadsheet super duper early. You
won't even remember what you said. You're like, I got a point for that?
Oh, yeah, no, that happens all the time. I mean, like, if I didn't take the piss with most of them, I wouldn't remember my predictions from year to year. Most of my predictions, because I think I've won most of the years we've done E3 stuff. And the reason for that is because I always do like really stupid ones where it's like, during the Microsoft conference, they're going to say 4K 15 times. Yeah, everyone else has like...
How'd you get that in the script?
Everyone else has...
Too specific?
Yeah, they have like real predictions about games, and mine are always just like, this is stupid industry bullshit that's going to happen. This year I actually did game-related ones instead of just being angry because I don't want to have to watch all of the conferences, specifically because I think most of them happen on my birthday, and my mom is demanding that I spend my birthday with her, so I won't actually have time to watch the conferences, and I really don't want to watch them after the fact on my own time.
Fair enough.
Yeah. If you ever want to just trick for remembering when my birthday is, just remember when the E3 conferences happen every year and just wish me a happy birthday around then and you'll be approximately correct. So.
E3's gift to you.
Oh god, I hate
boring
E3 so much though. Yeah, E3 I hate E3. I think we said this before, but it's just basically just a bunch of fucking ads and people eat it up like a dog eats its own shit. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really embarrassing how excited people get about E3 related stuff because it's just like watching a bunch of ads and then being happy about it. Like, to me,
will make my life be really good.
Yeah, to me that's just like peak consumerism, right? Like companies just like it's like a wet dream for a company when they just put out an ad and everyone like millions of people willingly show up to it and are like hyping it up on social media and doing all this shit and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is totally worth the cost of putting this stupid presentation together."
Now everyone's just like, screw it. Let's just do our own shows. It's cheaper.
Yeah, Nintendo's actually ahead of the curve on that one. They've been doing Nintendo Directs since what, like 2012?
A long ass time.
Yeah. It turns out they were almost a decade ahead of the curve from everyone else.
Now, if only they would work on their online services.
No, they're not going to do that. That would require them to actually learn. I'm so like, this is a side tangent.
So how did they come up with the idea for doing like streams online if they're so behind on technology?
Someone young works in the PR department. So here's my thing, and I'm pretty sure this is true of most Japanese companies. The people who have been there for like the boomer ass people who have been there for a super long time get to make all the decisions about what happens and how it happens, and all the young people just have to be like yes because these older people have seniority, right? They have experience, so their word is law, and everyone else is like whatever. I get that like happens in a lot of corporations, but I feel like it happens especially in Japan because of like cultural stuff there.
How dare you insult my senpai?
Well, yeah, so then with that, it's like, okay, so if a bunch of old people at Nintendo fundamentally don't understand how the internet works, and they're the ones who are making decisions about how the online service functions, then you end up with this scenario where it doesn't make sense how the online is set up. And the people who are making decisions about how the online should be set up and how it should work don't fundamentally understand how that should be set up and what level of a priority it should be. Jesus Christ. I'm playing with the cat. She was pawing at the wires underneath my desk. I don't know if that came through in the recording. I assume it will. I'm just running her around with the laser pointer and she decided to just like smash a bunch of shit off of the side table.
I didn't hear it on Discord, but I'm sure I'll hear it later.
I think that Mike will probably have picked it up. But yeah, that's why Nintendo will never have good online until like everyone who's like a fucking boomer at that company dies and a bunch of younger people who grew up playing online games are allowed to make decisions. Kind of like how that Splatoon, right? Like Splatoon was developed by a younger team when some of the older folks were like, let's give the younger people some like leadership roles on these projects. And they came up with something that breathing room. Yeah, it's just like they came up with something that's like it's very Nintendo still, but it's so different from everything else that it's like the only new original idea that Nintendo's had in years, which is that like, oh yeah, they made like an online third-person shooter. Okay, this is clearly made by a bunch of younger people who grew up playing video games, and they were like, "This is the kind of game we want to make."
And Call of Duty.
Like they grew up playing like shooters and shit. So when they got in the industry, they're like, "Oh, we want to make shooters," or at least for this game, they decided we wanted to make a shooter. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's a huge ass side tangent. Besides Pokemon release dates, what else was announced over the last few days?
Let's see. There was all the Dragon Quest announcements.
Wasn't that just like the next Dragon Quest game?
It was Dragon Quest 12, and we got pretty much a JPEG with the 12 being in flames. Apparently,
what a fucking useless announcement. Why do companies keep making announcements where they just show off a title screen of a game? Fucking Bethesda did that a few years ago. Nintendo did it. Fucking now Square Enix is doing that shit.
To be fair, I think Square Enix has been doing that for a little bit longer than that.
Oh, maybe, but it's just like, man, here's obvious game that's coming out. It's a sequel. Fucking
to our one of our biggest franchises.
Yeah, exactly.
Hallelujah. Apparently, it's just supposed to be like a darker story. I don't know what that means. Like that could mean anything. I'm not getting any information. There's not like a release window or anything.
Yeah, they didn't have anything to show off. Hey, we're working on the next game in our fucking like 35-year-old franchise. Wow. I'm so surprised. It's like announcing a new Final Fantasy game. It's like, no shit, a new Final Fantasy game is being developed.
It's not final. God damn it.
Yeah. I mean, it was going to be back when it
I
was
know.
originally.
And that it was too successful.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't there also a Sonic thing? I don't know what happened from the Sonic thing. I assume that they just said that a new Sonic game was being made.
I'll get to the Sonic thing in a second. There were some other Dragon Quest game related stuff because
Oh, okay.
it's one of the anniversaries, so they dumped a whole load of stuff
So what do they
that
do?
they're
Like
currently
a
working on.
remaster of an old Dragon Quest game?
There you go. There's one of the ones. It's Dragon Quest 3. They're gonna do it in the 2D HD
Oh, so
stuff
like
like
Octo?
Octopath,
Yeah,
kind
okay.
of that style. Except it looks like, at least from the trailer, it looked actually a lot better, and it still kept the Dragon Quest style.
I was gonna
Which is kinda
say,
nice.
actually, let me Google it to see what it looks like. But wow. No music. Yeah, I think this looks a little bit better than Octopath Traveler did by virtue of the fact that this game was made with color.
Of course.
Like Octopath Traveler looks nice, but it's very dark
Yep.
visually, where this is like a lot more brighter, and I feel like this what they've done here demonstrates why this art style works better with a much more vibrant color palette. That's really nice looking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people haven't been able to play like 3 because I think like
Was it lost to the annals of history?
no, I think they ported it. Like I think they have it actually on mobile, but like it's just the SNES version with like mobile controls. So this is kind of one of the first big remasters of or remakes of that. So it's
You
kinda
figure that they'll update some of the systems in it to be less grindy, or do you think it'll still be super duper grindy because it's Dragon Quest?
cool. It'll be Dragon Quest.
So super duper grindy then.
Yeah,
Okay, well, whatever.
not your cup of tea, but I might give it a whirl.
Yeah, I imagine friend of the show and avid listener, Ian from Adventure Rules, he probably is very excited about it as well.
Yeah, he said it was the only one he hasn't played or finished yet. So
Okay, well, this will give him a good reason to.
yeah, well, nobody in North America has been able to play Dragon Quest X because it's only in Japan still.
That's super weird.
It's the multiplayer, like the MMO one.
There's an
And
MMO?
it was, so they had Dragon Quest 9 on the Nintendo DS, and then they went with 10. They started that on the Wii, and I know they ported it to a bunch of other systems since, but it's only been strictly in Japan only. We haven't gotten
Fascinating.
any version. Apparently there's an expansion coming out, because it does the same thing as Final Fantasy XIV, kind of, with its expansions.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
I gotcha.
then apparently there's going to be an offline Dragon Quest X mode, released only in Japan, which I'm like still very confused of why they're doing that again.
I'm still sorry. I'm still stuck on the part where you said it's a MMO that started on the Wii.
It started on the Wii.
Yeah, my brain the wires in my brain started to crackle.
It's a very old one, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then there was this Dragon Quest Treasures game, which is starring one of the characters from 11, Eric and his sister.
Is this a gacha game?
No, it didn't. I think it's for consoles. They didn't really show off enough of like they showed a little bit of the gameplay, but not like enough that I could really tell
Dragon
what
Quest
the meat and
Treasures
potatoes was.
is a
Yeah.
new RPG spin-off starring Eric and Mia from Dragon Quest 11.
Yep.
One other Dragon Quest game was announced. They said it's a spin-off about treasure hunting, and that is
Yeah.
all.
That is all. The trailer
Okay.
showed some characters opening some treasures, and that was about it. And you're just like, okay, that's more information than I got in from 12, so I guess that's better than nothing.
I have never played these games before, but I love the way the characters look. Like,
It's from the same guy who does Dragon Ball. It's the
I
same
know.
art style.
but it's just like the colors, the characters' designs, everything about them is just so appealing.
Mm-hmm.
It just sucks ass that they're fucking grindy JRPGs, so I have no interest in playing them. But yeah, like the characters and the whole art style of Dragon Quest is very appealing to me.
No.
Yeah, that trailer really didn't show anything. It just showed them opening, like flying around and opening chests.
Exactly.
That's,
Nothing to go off of that one.
I would say it's a really terrible trailer, but whatever.
I mean, the best announcement was Dragon Quest 3.
Yeah, I would say that is.
I think they're trying to go with more simultaneous releases, which is kind of nice, because usually they release that in Japan first, and then it comes.
Oh, so like it's like worldwide releases then.
Yeah, I think they're trying for that. I think I saw that in the fine print.
Okay, that's cool.
But yeah, it's nice seeing companies actually trying to do, like, everyone gets it at the same time, so
Yeah,
the
I
West
feel
doesn't
like
have to get spoiler central for a whole year like Persona 5 did, and you're just like, stop YouTube, stop recommending me these videos. I do not want to see this.
I feel like more and more Japanese companies are warming up to the idea of trying to give like a worldwide release for their games, especially if they know it has a reasonable market presence in the West. Specifically so that everyone can kind of play it all at the same time. Especially because a lot of bigger Western developers anyway, will do worldwide releases for their games. And like Japan's, I wouldn't say it's the market leader in video games anymore, so they were just playing catch up to where everyone else is, right?
True. Yeah, but the West has outgrown them in terms of the market share.
It did years ago, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, I mean, like a lot for even just for the Japanese style games.
Oh yeah, specifically Japanese style game. I mean, like not every Japanese style game or game from Japan, certainly, but
more and more.
Yeah, like say Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. These are games that they were more niche back in their heyday, and now they're like fundamentally the only JRPGs that the mainstream even knows about. I guess Persona maybe would be in that kind of echelon now, even though it hasn't cracked the same number of sales, but I feel like it's getting franchises getting a lot more notoriety in the main. Starting to get the same kind of notoriety in the mainstream. It just hasn't had the same 20-30 years in the spotlight that Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest have.
That would be correct. Or you want to know about Sonic? So I did actually watch that live stream. There's a symphony that's going to be free online because COVID.
That's nice.
There's going to be
a symphony just 40 Crush playing fucking guitar butt rock to people.
They are in that list. There's going to be a live...
Yes!
There's going to be a symphony, the orchestra, there's going to be that band, and I think there's going to be some sort of a DJ, I can't remember.
I hope it goes as bad as that fucking the 30th anniversary. But the guy, I forget his name, but the lead singer was like trying to get the person to say like the Sonic Heroes thing, and then she's like, no, and then some guy like fucking walks up from the crowd. He's like, see, he'll do it, and he just like screams into the microphone. Heroes! No, he just screams a bunch of like incoherent gibberish. It's hilarious. If you just look up like Sonic, actually no, I'll link it the video in the post. I've been starting to do that where everything that I kind of mentioned or there are reference material for different stories I'm going to be putting in the post to my blog. So if you're ever curious about something or you want to follow up on something I mentioned or that Jason mentioned in the podcast, you can find the links for specific articles or YouTube videos in the posts from now on.
Very cool.
Yeah, I figured there needed to be some reason why the post would exist beside just spotlighting the fact that we do a podcast. Anyway, what all besides there's the anniversary concert, which is free for everyone on the internet.
There was some Sonic costumes that were going to be added to Tokyo
God.
2020 Olympics. So one of your players would be in a Sonic costume. Ironically, the Tokyo 2020 Olympics not having happened last year because of COVID hasn't been renamed to 2021 or 2022.
Yeah,
even though I think I read that most people from Japan don't even want the Olympics, and I don't fucking blame them. Why would you want every country in the world coming together and saying, yes, let's make a super COVID baby?
After COVID, I gotta imagine most of the population is too sensible to even want the Olympics to even be a thing anymore.
Yeah, no kidding.
No offense to the athletes who want to compete on the world stage because of the Olympics, but the fact that COVID even happened is like a very good reason to just...
Can we skip one? Please.
Or just shit can it entirely. I'm not super duper familiar with the origins of the Olympics, but I have heard, if you ever look up the Olympic flame curse, that kind of gets into some details with how the Olympics is maybe something that we maybe should have gotten rid of and replaced with something that doesn't have as racially charged origins as the Olympics does. There's a internet historian video where he covered like the curse of the Olympics flame, and then I kind of looked up what that was all about, and it's got something to do with the fact that like I don't even know. I can't even remember what the fuck it was anymore.
Well, I mean, like, the curse is probably, like, I haven't watched the video, but the curse is probably, like, how much, like, financial devastation happens in, like, the long term for, like, trying to keep these facilities up and running. Like, I mean, we heard all the horror stories from Brazil in terms of, like, the labor that was getting involved and how many people were, like, almost dying, or were dying to, like, build the buildings. Like,
yeah, that's... I gotta look it up now. Olympic flame curse. Let's see here. The curse of the Olympic flag. Seems the Olympic torch may be cursed. Is there a bit on Wikipedia about it?
Anyway, there's Sega owns like a this 2 Point Hospital game. There's apparently Sonic costumes happening in there, so now you get to be saved by Dr. Sonic and Dr. Tails.
That game is super duper boring, but that would be hilarious.
There was an old arcade game called, Sonic the Fighters, and that will be contained as one of the playable games within the new Judgment game, Lost Judgment. So that'll be one of the arcade games.
Yeah, I saw that on Reddit today. People were very excited about it because that's like a game that was kind of lost to the sands of time. Now it'll be playable through emulation in-game, which is kind of cool.
All those games that they keep throwing in the Yakuza-like games is very cool that they do that. Sonic Colors Ultimate is just going to be like a remaster of Sonic Colors, due out in September.
Is that going to be on non-Wii?
I think it's on non-Wii.
So it'll be on like all of the current things and PC then?
I believe so. And then there's like Sonic Origins, which is going to be the classic ones where they're just going to package up like 1, 2, 3, and a few other games next year. So the old school stuff. So it's not the Sonic Mania sequel that people were hoping for, but it's something for them. And then we pretty much got another JPEG for the new Sonic game that'll come out in 2022 for current and last gen consoles.
Oh god.
It was just another JPEG, pretty much.
What the fuck? Okay.
What? Bethesda did it first, and everyone cheered for them, so every company on the planet went, ooh, that works. Show them it.
Yeah, let's show them that we're developing a game that
them 12.
Exists. Fucking or Nintendo, fucking Bayonetta 3 is a logo, and so is Metroid Prime 4. Those games don't exist, they're just logos.
Nintendo's gonna announce, like, new Donkey Kong, and it's just gonna be a logo.
It's gonna be a fucking logo. We don't even need to show gameplay off to people.
It'll be on the next Nintendo console by then.
Yeah.
Sony, because they don't do E3 anymore.
They had a state of play earlier where they spent 5 hours doing nothing and then showed off Horizon Zero Dawn for 10 minutes, right?
10 to 20 minutes, yeah.
What a bunch of douchebags. Holy fuck, what a stupid company.
Yeah, I just think someone put it elegantly. Basically a 5-hour screensaver.
What a fucking idiotic company. I give Nintendo a lot of shit on this podcast, but Sony's, honest to God, like every fucking...
Up there, yeah.
I don't know what it is about, like, the console manufacturers from Japan, but they're all fucking stupid as shit. What asshole came up with that idea? Like, for 5 hours of nothing so that we can show you 20 minutes of fucking...
Well, it wasn't 5 hours of just a blank screen. It was 5 hours of them just showing off tiny portions of the world on, I think, repeat. I only watched for like a minute. I was just like, I'm done. I thought this was starting now.
That's still complete pants.
I know.
Chives came over to see why I'm so angry. I'm not angry at you, Chives. I'm angry at Sony.
Now I have to worry about yelling in front of the cat.
Yeah, Oh, well.
And then I guess there was some Dying Light 2 news. I didn't actually end up watching that one.
Thomas posted about that on our server because he's very excited about it. That was his prediction that got shit canned. They showed off a new trailer because it was kind of on hiatus for a bit, and they were not sure what kind of the state of that game was, and they had to change some big things with it. But they have a new trailer, and they've got a release date of December 7th of this year.
Cool.
Unlike everything else, I do believe that this... Oh yeah, they put out 30 minutes of stuff with regard to... It's kind of like an update where they talk about where they were at, what the hell took so long, and then they kind of get into some of the background information for the game, show off some different additions for the game. It looks like they have a trailer in the middle, and then they talk a bit more about story, how your choices create branching narrative stuff, and then I think they go over a few other aspects of the game. So like they had kind of like a giant 30-minute video put out where they fundamentally talk about the game, different aspects of the game, so that people know what kind of stuff stayed from their older presentations. Yeah, exactly. Because people kind of already knew what they had said, and then so they're like, okay, here's what we have now. Here's what's actually coming out. So that people are like, they don't have their...
Yeah, their expectations have been...
Yeah, exactly.
Reset.
Yeah.
Or at least hopefully reset. Some people will still,
Yeah, but I with the kind of break between the last time they showed it and now, I gotta imagine this will help to set clear expectations about what the game is delivering on and what kind of experience players can actually expect when they purchase and play Days Gone.
Man, this sounds like what Cyberpunk should have done.
Days Gone, sorry, Dying Light, fucking wrong zombie-ass game. Cyberpunk, they did that intentionally to lie so that they can get more sales, which is super duper scummy.
They're still apparently not back on the PSN store.
Which is so weird to me because Life of Black Tiger is still available on the PlayStation. Like,
You'll always
obviously
mention
there
that
is no
one.
bar for quality if that fucking piece of shit's
Well,
on there.
now there's also Hentai versus Evil.
Booba La Mal. No follow-up to that?
No follow-up to that. That surprised me. I wasn't expecting, at least hentai being in the name of one of the games on Sony's console, since they have such a high requirement for certain other games. Like, oh, you can't have that scene because it's a little too risque or something like that. And then it's like, okay, you have hentai in the name? Okay, that...
So this game is on Steam. This is basically, like, I was talking with Jason about this before we started recording it. This is a third-person, like a really slapdash, lazy-ass third-person shooter.
Unity quality.
Yeah, exactly. Where you run around as a Sanran Kagura character with no clothing on and you shoot things with, guns.
Yeah, they're probably clothed in this version for Sony's sake.
They're probably clothed in the Sony version, I got to imagine. Instead of not being that way, but it's still very surprised that is a
title they accepted.
Yeah, exactly.
Sony does weird things.
Speaking of Sony, they put out a presentation. I don't know exactly when. Maz, another friend and frequent listener of the show.
Oh, you're talking about the Uncharted 4 news?
He sent me some other stuff about the numbers, the growth rate, some of the other things that they have.
I think they've made the disc-less version profitable for the PS5, and they're working towards making the PS5 disc version profitable by June.
Apparently, the discless version, people are spending 8% more on digital content on that versus the standard version.
I mean, that makes sense.
People are spending 8% more on that on average, and then a greater volume of the amount purchased is add-on content instead of full games, where the disc version is more full games and less add-on content.
That would make sense with why I would probably get a disc version, so I don't go for the add-on content as much.
Yeah, and then the difference between PS4 and the PS5, there's a 15% increase as far as relative spend per connected device. Though I'd imagine that people who bought a PS5 are spending a lot of money, and people who have PS4s are not. I don't know if that's a fair comparison.
Well, yeah, they were the ones that migrated first.
Mm-hmm.
So they're most likely going to be the ones that
But yeah,
want to play the games.
Just on that basis, the bit that Maz sent me was that for PlayStation Plus specifically, as of 2020, they have around 84 million paid subscribers, and the primary reason for those people, they have them broken down. So 40% of people said that they have it for online multiplayer, 30% said they had it for monthly free games. So that's the majority. The lion's share is for online multiplayer and for the free games. 18% said they had it for the games and discounts. And then 12%, I cannot believe this 12% even exists. 12% said that they had it so that their cloud storage would be expanded for games.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, sure.
And 75% of the surveyed users rated the service at an 8 or higher out of 10 for overall satisfaction.
I think it needs to be a bit lower than that, but alright.
I think that's hilarious because the amount of cloud storage you guys don't get by default is very funny to me, because on Steam you don't have to pay a dime and you get more cloud storage.
Mm-hmm.
For a free account you get more cloud storage than you get on on a console you have to pay to own. That's so mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's got the subscription, it's the free games mostly.
Yeah.
And then it helps that there's some discounts, even if it's 10% less. It's okay, well, that'll pay for itself.
And then as far as the stuff you said about Uncharted, they had a slide 26 in the presentation has inadvertently revealed that Uncharted 4 is coming to PC. This particular slide is about new growth vectors. And the first side of it is off consoles, so it shows Horizon Zero Dawn, and then more PC releases planned, and they have Days Gone listed, which just released on PC, I think a couple of weeks ago. And
yep, not long ago.
Uncharted 4, Among Thieves, is also, A Thief's End, rather. Its logo is underneath Days Gone.
That was 2 that you said.
Yeah, and then apparently Horizon Zero Dawn did very, very well for them on PC, and it also did really well in target demographics that they do not do well in with their consoles. So the 3 countries' flags that are displayed here are China, Russia, and India, which are all markets where PC is much stronger than console, by virtue of the fact that a PC can be used for more things than a dedicated gaming device can be used for. This slide also shows that they're trying to invest more in games as a service. But like the thing that I thought was most interesting was seeing that Uncharted 4 is coming to PC. I cannot wait to see how many people fucking lose their goddamn minds. People were pissing and moaning when Horizon was announced for PC. Not as many people were upset when Days Gone was announced for PC, but when fucking Uncharted, like Sony's Sacred Cow franchise, is offered up to PC gamers, there's some people who are like the mentally unstable people who are emotionally upset about
How
losing.
dare this happen to
losing
my precious game?
Yeah, losing a fucking console exclusive. Like I can't even.
Sony has betrayed my trust for the final time. I will not buy a PS5.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I can't wait till the fucking stupid ass videos about that happen. Just as an aside for anyone who's listening, because you asked this question earlier, Jason, and I answered it for you.
How in the world would they play Uncharted on the first 3 games?
Yeah, so PS Now, the streaming service, has all 3 games, and it is available on PC in most regions. So you can already stream 1, 2, and 3 if you haven't played them already to your computer. And then you can play 4 natively, and it'll run better than it does on a PlayStation 4. I guarantee that shit will run at 60 FPS on almost every PC, as long as you've got parts from the last, 3 years. So yeah, that'll be like the definitive best way to play Uncharted. It'll actually run at 60 FPS. So how much longer until like God of War ends up on fucking PC?
I think a lot of people are saying God of War, like a fresh restart, with it being like the first one in like the new way that they're telling the story, would have been almost a better choice than starting at like Uncharted 4. But I mean, as you've explained, you can play it on PS Now.
I'm going to be very curious about is if God of War is announced at any point shortly thereafter. I know some people are like, oh, Bloodborne, and I know that people who like Bloodborne are very, like, FromSoft fans are very fervent about stuff like that. Even if it comes out on PC, it'll still run at 30 FPS because there's game logic that's tied to animations, so they can't actually have it run faster, otherwise the game will break. So that might be a disaster port if it ever ends up happening, but we will see.
It'll be interesting, that's for sure.
What's the other kind of Sony game? Spider-Man and like Sprocket and Clonk. If they ever come to PC, that'd be cool too. I wouldn't mind playing Sprocket and Clonk. I'm not going to buy a console for one game, but
you'd like it.
Yeah, I figured. I kind of looked at it. I'm like, oh yeah, this game looks like I'd probably enjoy it.
Yeah, they probably start with Ratchet and Clank, the PS4 one.
Mm-hmm. Sony is not content with losing to Microsoft on the PC front, so they're going to start releasing their main titles on this PC.
When do we figure Nintendo's going to start doing this? When all the boomers are dead?
Fucking never. Nintendo thrives off of the idea that they can continue to sell consoles to move their games. I'm still kind of surprised that they actually release games on mobile, but they've seen a lot of success there. Maybe at some point in the future. I think that like Nintendo has.
Oh yeah, I think Sony wanted to also focus a bit more on mobile as well with their IPs.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I didn't have anything to kind of follow up with it, so at least in the slide, I assumed in the presentation they mentioned something, but based off the slideshow, I can't ascertain what they would have put in there, because I got no follow-up information for that.
They'd have to do like major IPs in order for it to...
It'd be some bullshit like EA and fucking Ubisoft where they put out these stupid mobile versions that nobody wants for dead fucking franchises. They got Command and Conquer on mobile. Oh. Splinter Cell on mobile.
Hitman on mobile.
That game's still alive though, for now.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's it for news. Let's move on to the games we've been playing.
Alright, so we're doing back and forth again, yeah?
Oh yeah, we're doing back and forth.
So just based off the list of what we've been playing, I'm going to go first here. So over the past several weeks, I've been playing It Takes Two, and I haven't mentioned it until now because I was playing with Miranda and the opportunities we had for playing was a little bit sporadic, so I didn't want to bring it up.
Well, I mean, you needed 2 people.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to bring it up and then have it be like a thing that I mentioned several times over several weeks without any kind of meaningful way to talk about it. It's not like Them's Fighting Her. It's where I'm obviously going to be playing that game for several months, but I can at least have a bunch of condensed playtime that I can talk about it meaningfully after a couple of weeks, and then I can not talk about it for a little bit and then go back and then, have something new to talk about in a future episode, a couple episodes away. So yeah, I finished It Takes Two now.
It gave you the feels.
Yeah, I fucking hated that. Wrote an article about how this game made me cry, and I fucking despise it a little for doing it because did it in the worst way possible. That is the most evil shit I have ever done in the video game. I'm not going to say what happened because obviously the article is full of super duper spoilerinos. So if you've played it and you want to know what specifically got me, go read the article on frostylate.ca. If you want to avoid spoilers until you've played the game yourself, I'm going to try and stay mostly spoilers free. I'll talk about mechanics in this section of the podcast, but I'll stay away from. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about story, but not in super detail.
I'll just add the spoiler tag.
Yeah, we'll add the spoiler tag, but if you've listened this far, you can make a judgment call on if that sounds like it'd be too spoilery if you still want to play it with your friend, significant other, partner, parents, child, whatever. So, like, the premise of the game is that you're playing as a couple that's getting a divorce.
That'd be a little awkward to play with your child.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially if you've had a divorce.
No kidding. Dad, Mom, is this what happened?
Yeah, basically. And then, like, the story centers around how they're at the point where their relationship is already broken down, and that's why they're getting the divorce. It's not going to be like a clean divorce or like an amicable divorce. It's like they hate each other at this point. They've kind of forgotten what they saw in each other in the first place. They don't communicate that super well, so their child kind of thinks that she's responsible for them wanting to split up.
That's almost very cliche. I think every kid thinks that.
I don't know about every kid, but I think that's kind of a common-ish theme with some of the side effects as far as like mental health related stuff that kids go through if their parents do get a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say the setup for the story is super nuanced. I wouldn't say the way it's handled is great either from a writing side of things. I think that the game is actually kind of weak. It does have its moments, but overall, the way that the two main characters are written, their relationship at this point is so toxic and so caustic that there is no saving it. The game tries to be pretty lighthearted about things and wants to show them kind of like, it kind of shows why their relationship broke down and like tries to help them repair it. But at this point, the way these two people talk to each other and treat each other, their relationship is too far gone to where I would think that anyone could. And I think anyone who's been in a relationship is going to understand maybe a little bit about what I'm saying here, but just like there are things that they say and the way that they treat each other is just so despicable at times. Like no one who's been in a good relationship would look at that and say, yeah, this is a healthy relationship. This is a relationship that can recover. They're so mean-spirited to each other that for my money, it just wouldn't make sense.
Well, fuck you, Bob. Fuck you, Martha.
Like that's almost kind of what it's like, right? Like it's just like there's tons of personal attacks. It's always, oh, this only happened wrong because it's your fault or whatever. And it's like it's not a healthy relationship. So the two characters are just written like the two biggest fucking dickheads. I don't think either of them are very likable, which kind of hinders the overall message of the thing. I feel like they were kind of going for maybe making the characters a little bit more exaggerated. In that regard, I guess they succeeded, but for me, it made the characters like super duper unlikable. They're the kind of people, if I met them in real life, I would immediately try to find a way. Like if I was at a party, I'd try to find a way to never ever talk to them again at that party, you know?
Hide in the bathroom, get food poisoning and leave.
Precisely.
Go through the window.
Now, having said all of that, the game, I think, shines brightest in its co-op gameplay. The game is extremely fun to play. The core mechanics are 3D platformer. It's got very fluid jumping mechanics in it. It's very fun to just control the characters and move around the environments, which is always good because that's primarily what you're doing in a platforming-based game. And then throughout the entire experience, they're layering on different mechanics in each of the areas. One person will have access to a certain mechanic and then another person will have access to another mechanic. They're complementary in that by yourself you can't actually get through the level with your ability, but by working together each of your abilities fulfills a certain skill and then you combine them together to traverse through the level as a team.
But you can, because of the toxic relationship, they're able to like kind of fuck with each other, right? With the puzzles.
There's like a few cases where I was able to screw with Miranda, but they were very few and far between. For the most part, we actually had to work together. That's kind of like the theme of the game, is working together to like get over your issues. It's got a great sense of pacing, so you end up getting introduced to new mechanics at such a speed that you'll get the new mechanic, you'll play around with it a little bit, and then it'll be thrown in the dirt, and you'll do something else for a little bit. And because of that, you can never get really bored of doing one thing for too long, which I thought was really nice. Yeah, I don't think I have much more to say about it than that. It's just like it's really, really fun. It works as a co-op game, obviously, because it gives you two different abilities in each area, and then the pacing at which the abilities kind of change around, or like what types of gameplay challenges you're dealing with, was diverse enough, and it happened, like the changes happened often enough that I had a really fun time playing it, and so did Miranda. The only kind of area we were a little bit sick of is there's an area where, for the most part, you're both kind of doing a third-person shooter style thing. One of you covers enemies in a substance, and then the other one shoots them to ignite the substance. That section goes on for a little bit longer. Honestly, I think it was probably around the same length as most of the other sections in the game. It's just that it felt longer because we both hate third-person shooting. And then for me, it's like we were playing both on controllers, so that involved a lot of me using my right index finger, so it started to get sore after 40 minutes of holding the trigger down basically nonstop. And then like the section after that involved my character continuing to use the right trigger for stuff, which was especially like after using my trigger finger for like over an hour, my hand was like, I am done now. I didn't like that section of the game a whole lot, though it does end in a really cool thing, although I was very jealous that Miranda got to do a certain segment in that area that I would have rather have done, but that's neither here nor there.
You guys played local co-op, right?
Yeah, we were playing sitting beside each other. There was one section in the middle of the game where the power-ups were super underwhelming, but that was just like 40 minutes, and then you're done. You're on to like the next level. So other than that, it was a really, really good mechanical experience. I'd totally recommend checking it out if you have a person who you play games with frequently. It's not super duper involved to the point where I would say that if like the person who you're playing with has like kind of a basic understanding of how to play games, I would say that they can play this. If they have no understanding of how to play games, this might be a little bit too challenging for them. It's pretty forgiving though, so like if they kind of know how to like move the camera and move a character at the same time, they can play the game.
I see what you mean.
I think Sarah could probably play it. I know she doesn't really play a lot of action games, but she's played through Pokemon Sword and Shield, so like that had areas where you move the camera and the character at the same time. I think she'd be fine to play through this with you if you wanted to play it.
Maybe. I can't remember if she moves the camera and moves the character around at the same time.
There's also like a lot of sections where the camera angle is like set, so it's like forced, and then you just like...
Oh, okay. That's nice.
That's not a huge deal. It's forgiving enough to the point where like Miranda and I died constantly from just like doing stupid shit, but it didn't really matter and it didn't really slow us down.
Right. It's infinite lives.
Yeah. Well, it's like as long as both of you don't die at the same time, you're fine. So like one of you will die and then a couple seconds later they'll come back. So as long as you don't die in like the 5-second window it takes for the other person to come back, then you're fine. So there's like a few times where we both were like dying one after another and we were like barely coming back in time. And then there's one point where I like crashed a plane that we were on because I was distracted by something and that killed us. But like other than that, we didn't really ever lose any progress. That and like I imagine that just because of like with that particular segment where I crashed the plane, it just put us like right back at the start of where that section started and it wasn't even that long. I imagine that most of the game has generous checkpoints like that where it's like, oh, you died, it'll just send you back to like wherever like the last kind of major thing started, and like none of the sequences that are like you had to do them in one shot are particularly challenging. So it's a fun game.
Yeah, I really like the business model behind it because you don't have to buy the second copy.
I thought that was really, really good as well, and apparently the game was commercially successful. So even though they did hinder the number of sales they could have gotten, that move earned them enough goodwill that it made up for it.
I mean, they did the same thing with A Way Out, so I'm glad that they're continuing with that because they clearly like making co-op games.
Yeah, I feel like A Way Out being successful in that regard
help continue that trend.
Yeah, like I feel like the fact that A Way Out was successful gave them kind of like a green light to do it with It Takes Two, and It Take Two being more successful is just going to continue to pave the way for, okay, if you want to do it this way, you've clearly proven that the viable way to do it, so you're allowed to continue doing it. Instead of, like if it doesn't work out, then okay, then we need to change things, right?
Yep. Hopefully EA doesn't do anything to them.
Well, that's why I said, like, as long as they continue to prove what they're doing is viable, then EA is not going to have a problem with it.
The next one will be It Takes 3. They'll be like, wait, that's too many. It's too many free copies. You can't do that.
No, I don't think so. I think they're going to continue to do co-op, or at least if what they've done so far is any indication. I think they're going to continue to do co-op
Yeah,
stuff,
probably.
which is, I think, pretty cool. Not a lot of co-op games come out, so it's nice that there's a developer who's very focused on trying to tell unique stories and give unique co-op game experiences instead of, like fucking Nintendo's approach to co-op where it's like little brother co-op where the second player ostensibly doesn't need to exist. I'm not as big a fan of that, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I mean the second player in Mario Galaxy was just you could point and collect the star bits.
Yeah,
That was all you could do.
I did that with Miranda, or not Mario Galaxy, Mario Odyssey. But yeah, I remember Galaxy as well. But yeah, Odyssey, I had Miranda playing as the Hat, and that wasn't very fun.
I
Luigi's
can
Mansion was a
imagine.
little bit better, but because the game is designed to be played alone, there was sections of the game where I was doing a lot and Miranda couldn't do anything, and then
Vice
there were
versa.
sections where, yeah, exactly. So that was a little bit disappointing. So it's like basically like we were just watching each other play for large stretches of the game. It was more fun when we got to play together, which didn't happen a whole lot, but it was always fun when we get to do that. So anyway, that's It Takes Two. What's the first one on the docket from you there, Jason?
You know what? I'll go with my co-op game, but I played it alone. Cat Quest 2.
For
Now,
Chives' sake.
for Chive's sake, yes. I This is actually an old one, so I'm kind of forgetting some parts I was going to talk about because I forgot about it last week or last episode.
So it's like potentially you've played this like a month ago then?
Probably.
Oh my
That's
god.
fine. I have to bring it up for Chive's sake.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's only fair. Cat Quest 2, its main thing is that it's Cat Quest 1, but now you have co-op with a doggo, and that's about it. Co-op's okay. Playing in single player almost feels like cheating in certain regards. The ally character will not get hit at all, so you basically when
Oh,
your
so you
character
basically have an
dies,
invincible ally?
you have an invincible ally. They can keep attacking forever, so they attack really slowly, but you can win if your character the character you put like more effort into it goes down. All you have to do is go over to the other character that died, your better character that died, and then just like wait and then keep like circling around while the enemy tries to attack you and just revive that one, then continue.
Hmm.
It's got, the cat and the dog puns. This time, the cats and the dogs are really at each other's throats. There's basically a war between the two kingdoms going on, and you have to basically say, stop warring, guys. It's not cool. And that's more or less what the story is. You have to try and build, like, super powerful weapon, but the weapon is the friends that you made along the way.
Sounds like a JRPG. So Cat Quest,
It-
if I'm not mistaken, it's like Diablo, right?
yeah, Diablo-esque.
But for like mobile devices, although it was ported to console and PC.
Exactly, it's designed for that. I compared Cat Quest 1 and 2 like together, and they have made some significant changes graphically, so there is that. So it does look a lot better.
Okay.
One problem being, though, they also made this one way too fucking big. It is a fucking huge map, and there's not a whole lot in between other than like a few towns, and you're just like, okay, this is another example of more is not better. Why did you make the map like
It's
two
not
or
about
three
the
times bigger?
size. It's about how you use how you use the size that counts. Penis joke.
Oh, not again. I can't believe you've done this.
I don't know. It is what it is.
The odd cat joke or dog joke made me laugh a little bit, but honestly, it's fine. It does have the audacity at the end to go, oh, look, Cat Quest 3, and I'm like, no, don't, not another one.
I don't know if we've brought it up before.
We have, like, when developers are, like, make the
Okay.
same game over and over and over again, and they won't branch out and do anything different.
I've made that point several times and I've made it on stream. I don't actually think I've written a post about it, but I've made it on stream. I've said it on like forums before. It's
There,
just like,
that's your next post.
yeah, I could make a post about it, but it's just like, it's one of those things where it sucks when developers get trapped making the same games over and over and over again, because like part of the thing that you can do when you're working at a smaller company is that you have the freedom to not just continually do
Yeah, you have the freedom
franchises,
to do
right?
whatever you want, just not franchise. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you can do a franchise, you can like have a franchise to fall back on, but it's like, you should branch out. You should try new ideas. And then if it doesn't work, you can always go back to the thing that you know works. But, it gives you a chance to like get experiences, get exposure, change the way you're thinking about things so you have the ability to actually broaden the scope of your main kind of franchise.
Well, and your audience in general. That's
that too.
The goal. But I mean, I guess there's also the part where people are like, "Oh, we can't take a financial hit," and this one did such a good, so good.
That's
it
fair.
Makes sense for us to do the second and the third and just keep going until this gravy train ends. That's good short term, but it's bad long term.
Yeah, that's not sustainable long term.
No, but people love just seeing it short term. They don't like to see the long term goal because the long term goal is unfortunately a lot harder.
Yeah.
It's a very human problem.
How did you find the game overall?
I think the novelty of like the first game wears off a little bit quicker in the second one.
Okay.
Because I have played both. And I did enjoy my time with one, but it was a lot shorter, which I think helps. And this one being a much longer experience kind of just overstays its welcome.
Okay.
Who knows? If I had played this like co-op properly, maybe it would have been a little bit more fun with another person, but I only have one working PS4 control at the moment, so I played it by myself.
That's fair.
It was all right.
I kind of feel like if you felt like it ran out of steam on its own, I don't feel like adding another person would have significantly changed it enough to where you would enjoy it.
Probably not.
And if it was, then it would have been one of those things where it's like, okay, well, then it's not the game's doing, it's the fact that you enjoy spending time with that other person, right? So...
That's all I'm going to say about Cat's Quest.
Okay.
What's next for you?
I guess I will briefly bring up Cozy Grove again. So, probably the last time I'll bring it up since I'll actually be able to talk about it and not be fucking rushed. So, I finally hit a month of in-game time with it.
It's like 1 hour a day?
About 90 minutes a day. So, I think I'm at like 60 hours total. 64 apparently. I think it's starting to peter out a little bit for me. Which sucks because I'm finally starting to like hit some of like the mid to later parts of some of the character stories, and I kind of want to see some of them through to the end.
Yeah, it's really a long game.
It's long in the sense like it's intensely repetitive, right? Like you show up, you do your chores every single day, and then you leave. And sometimes you get new story bits, and sometimes you don't. It's long in the sense that it just takes a long time to do things, but it doesn't take a long time to do things for like a good reason. It just takes a long time because it takes a long time. Which is why I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, eh.
Do you think this would be better on, like, mobile phones, or...
There's the thing, it is on mobile.
Or strictly on mobile?
Maybe. I've seen what it runs like on the Switch. It runs like ass on the Switch. I can't imagine the phones run much better. Definitely like a programming problem there to be solved, but...
Switch Pro!
Not even. The issue is that there's not enough RAM. But yeah, the cadence that you play the game at just kind of suits more of like a drop-in, drop-out kind of a play style. I think I said it before, but the biggest thing for me with this game and why I'm kind of enjoying it more than I enjoyed Animal Crossing is because the developers are really keen to implement player feedback where Nintendo just says, fuck you, die. So another patch hit this week and it fixed a ton of issues people have been bringing up since the last major quality of life update happened. Some of the in-game achievements, the badges that you can earn that were unattainable are now all obtainable. Some of the issues with accessibility as far as color blindness and like people who have
can't see the small writing.
Yeah, I was just saying eye-related accessibility issues have been addressed across the board, whether it be text size, the brightness of the screen, or the color-related stuff. It's like one of the changes is that there's like a day-night cycle, but if you have a hard time seeing at night, you can just make it day all the time, so you don't have to worry about it being a little bit harder to see.
That's nice.
The text was also improved. There's a UI. There's like a sort function now that'll auto-sort your inventory.
But the game thinks it's still night while you're playing in the day?
Yeah, exactly. It's still,
that's nice.
Yeah, it still functions like it's at night. It's just that you can see everything like it's during the day. There's one particular item that is like a thing out like a head of lettuce, kind of. And there's 3 different versions of it, and they were just like a light green, a green, and then a dark green. Like if you're green colorblind, it's impossible to tell the difference between the 3 of them. So they changed it so the icons for them are unique. So now like the light green one is like a small leaf, green one is like a medium-sized leaf, and then the dark green one has now been changed to purple instead of dark green, and it's been changed to like a much bigger leaf. So it's very easy to tell the difference between the 3 of them now.
That's a win for both people who have the problem and people who don't then.
I really like the changes as well, and I don't have any of these eye-related accessibility issues. It makes the game easier to read, right? You can just like look at the item and you're like, oh, I know what this is now. You don't even need to look at like the color of it or open your inventory or anything. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. I have hit the point where I am at like critical mass with the amount of money I'm making, so I just kind of collect all of my shit every couple of days and then process it and make a fuckload of money, and then I buy the upgrades that I want and then I continue on. It's still fun. It's a lot of busy work in the same way that Animal Crossing is a lot of busy work, but like I said, I've been enjoying it more just because the focus is less on, doing a bunch of bullshit grinding and more on seeing what the stories of these different characters are. And the fact that the developers have been a lot more receptive to feedback. Like, there's just so many, like, small, annoying things that exist in Animal Crossing New Horizons that just don't exist in this game. When you don't have those annoyances constantly dogpiling you. Just for example, one of the really cool things is if you want to craft something, you can just use any of your crafting supplies if they're in your backpack or if they're in your inventory, like your main storage inventory. You don't have to pull anything out of storage to craft it. You just find the item and go, I want to craft this, and then you can craft it. It doesn't matter. Or if someone's like, hey, I need these items for a quest, and you have all those items in storage, you can immediately turn the quest in because you have all the items already. So you don't have to go to your storage, get the items out, and then come back to the person. You can just fucking turn in the quest.
No, this is too complex for Nintendo.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like one of those, it's fucking, it's like one of those things where it's like once you've played a game that actually, like, it has these kind of convenience features in place, then you're like, I'm even less inclined to go back or deal with these issues existing in other games.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happens with better games. Why, like, when my wife played Stardew Valley, and then she went back to play some of the Harvest Moon games, she was just like, what Stardew Valley did, I can't play these Harvest Moon games. They're so, like, they feel so antiquated. Yeah.
Yeah, Miranda's been finding that a lot recently, too. Stardew just fucking raised the bar so far beyond what...
It just, like, ruined everything.
Yeah, it just ruined everything else.
For her.
Yeah, it's fundamentally...
In a good way, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. I get that it's like, oh yeah, well, I can't enjoy these other games anymore, but at the same token, it's like, well, those games are kind of shit, so maybe you should spend your time playing better games. I don't know, just a suggestion. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Cozy Grove. I'm having I don't know if I'll see it, like, all of the character side stories through, but I want to see at least a couple of their side stories through, because some of the ones that I'm a little bit further along on, I at least want to get them to conclusion. I don't know if I'll play... The final badge for days played on is 90. I just got like the 30-day one, and the final one is 90. I don't know if I'll get the 90-day badge, but I'll see some of the game through, and I still wanted to write about the game in some capacity, at least.
I mean, are you allowed to, like, do the hack the clock and then just change the date, or...
You can, but some people have reported some very severe save file corruption issues when they did that, so there's an in-game tooltip that says, do not do this. Because it has completely broken some players' games.
Okay, that's funny.
Yeah.
All right, that
was one of the first tooltips they added into the loading screen. If you look back at
Please,
the patch
for the love
history.
of God, do not be a time-traveling wizard.
Yeah. Although some people definitely have on Steam, because there's achievements for playing in all 4 seasons, and somebody has them even though this game came out in April, so there's no way they could have played in all 4 seasons. Technically, April would have had, like, late winter. Some people could have legitimately done winter and spring, and as soon as it flips over to June, then summer will count, but the fall will not happen until, like, September. The way that the seasons work is kind of like there's, like, an early and a late and, like, a mid version of the season, so, like, the late and the early have crossover.
That's neat.
That's it. That's all I have to say about Cozy Grove. It's a fun game.
I guess I'll do my Mean Potatoes game this week. With all the Resident Evil stuff going on, Village and Gaming Omnivore stream, shout out to him, playing Resident Evil 4, I decided I'd sit down and finally finish Resident Evil 7, Biohazard. I enjoyed the hell out of this game. It is a solid entry into the Resident Evil franchise.
You've played most of the Resident Evil games, right?
I've watched a lot of the Resident Evil games. I've not played a lot of them.
Okay.
But 7, I knew certain parts about it, and then, like, the earlier parts, because that's what a lot of people would show on YouTube videos. Because there's basically 2 acts. There's the baker's house, and then there's the ship part of the game. The ship part is a bit weaker, but it's also to kind of tie a bunch of the stuff that, like, kind of explain what happened. it's necessary, but it's a bit weaker than the bakers. So I'm going to talk more about the baker's side.
Welcome to the family.
Yes.
I hope we don't get DMCA'd for that. Somebody out there is going to know what that's from, but...
No, we probably won't get DMCA'd for that. It wasn't 5 seconds, it was a couple seconds.
Yeah, I don't think Miracle Sen will have a problem with me referencing one of his songs.
No.
Go look him up on YouTube. He's awesome.
Yeah, he is. So yeah, you start off looking for your wife, and then through some certain events, you basically get abducted by the bakers. I'll put a spoilers tag, obviously, for this. And then you basically have to survive the bakers hunting you down. Basically, the father of the bakers, the daddy, he's wacky as hell, and he just does not give a shit about taking any damage from you. He's basically...
a Thunder Chad, if you will.
Sure, a Thunder Chad. Yeah, he just does not care. He basically, through one of the boss fights, even shows you that he just does not give a shit about taking damage, because he has a lot of regenerative abilities. So it's kind of nice because you have to take the approach away from like, oh, I can defeat all these enemies and like get through this area. And it's like, no, this is a beast that you cannot take down at this time. Run, hide, escape, whatever you need to do in order to survive the encounter with him. The game is designed in such a way that there will be, at least on easy and normal, there are certain parts where he will spawn again. So if you kind of know on easy and normal the playthrough, then you kind of know like when you're safe. So because I had played this once before, I knew like, oh, okay, until this point I can just go and explore around the area. So I didn't really feel that much danger. I knew what would trigger. That is not true in the Madhouse game, which is unlocked after normal. I have not played all of it yet. It mixes up where the monsters are spawned, what happens, so
you get that feeling of tension back.
You get the tension back. It's like a completely new game. I don't think the key items are switched around, but like the normal items are all switched around. So like stuff that you'd unlock, you'd be like, oh, this is not here anymore. Like, oh, where is it? I don't know what I can do with the stuff that I've got, and it freshens it up, which is kind of nice. So, I mean, it makes sense because you do have to play the game once before to unlock it, which makes a lot of sense. Weirdly enough, they sell this like DLC coin pack thing, which they give like little perk bonuses. I don't know why they had to really do that, but it also unlocks the Madhouse version beforehand. It just seems silly that what they added in. In order to actually effectively play the game, you should be playing it on normal. And it's only going to take, like, it took me 8 hours to complete the first playthrough, and I was just kind of exploring and taking my time, taking in, like, the scenes, being a little bit more cautious with being, like, stealthy, and I was on normal. It's a really solid entry. The way that some of the bakers change forms, especially Marjorie, she kind of turns almost, like, insect-like. And it's really, really, like, creepy, especially fighting her. She's, like, one of the bigger boss fights you start off with. And she takes, at least on normal, she took, like, almost all of my shotgun bullets. And I had, like, 32 of them. And, like, I was just like, I'm going to have some left over after this fight. No, I was almost drained of all my resources.
Is she the one with the bug vagina?
Yes.
Ugh.
I still think you should play this one over Resident Evil 2.
Really?
It's just really good, and it's short enough, especially once you know where you're going, because I played this on easy mode afterwards for some of the miscellaneous achievements that you have to get, like don't use any heals, don't use more than 3 heals, don't use the item box more than 3 times. I played on easy, and I played it twice on easy. Finished it in 3 hours after I knew what I was doing, and then I got one that was under 3 hours. So you can really power through this once you know what you're doing, especially on easy. But yeah, tension's good. I was playing with Sarah, and she was like watching, and we were both kind of laughing at some of the dialogue. Some of it's a little goofy. Some of it's terrifying, like, oh, Ethan.
That didn't come through on Discord, but I'm going to probably laugh my ass off when I get to hear it in the actual recording.
Oh, that's too bad.
That's fine. Discord always blanks out audio when you blow up the mic.
I didn't even blow up the mic. That's the funny part.
Listeners, I get to listen to it at the same time you do. Huzzah!
You're not much of a scary game guy, right?
I like more cerebral horror. So, like, Danganronpa is one of my favorite horror games. That game's not a traditional horror game.
Well, it's a visual novel.
Yeah, but like the themes it tackles and the implications of its story are the kinds of things that I appreciate about horror games. So instead of it being like actually scary, it's like it's scarier when you take the time to think about it after you've stopped playing it than it maybe is in the moment when you're playing it, if that makes sense. Soma's kind of the same thing. Like, there's parts of Soma that are fucking terrifying, but Soma is, I think, like, scarier kind of when you're thinking more about its, like, overarching themes after the fact. Although being underwater in that game is fucking terrifying.
Anything underwater is terrifying.
Subnautica is also terrifying. That's one that I refuse to play. Fucking Christ, whenever I see Miranda playing that game, it scares the shit out of me.
I think that's just a family fear of aquatics.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I've got the same problem.
Can I hijack this for a second?
Sure.
No, it's my fucking dumbass parents. I don't know if mom and dad listen to the fucking podcast, but my dumbass parents threw me into the, like, when I was younger, they were trying to teach me how to swim. And they had like a swimming class where like parents and Babu would go swimming, and one day the pool it had like a raising floor that would like go up and down, and it would go up for when the babies were in, so that wasn't super deep water, and it's broken, so they just held the class when the water was like super deep, and that traumatized me so fucking bad. That for years I had nightmares about this swimming pool and didn't know what it was until I was older and went back to that pool at another time and was like, oh my god, this is that place that I had this recurring nightmare about. And then I like asked my parents about it, and they're like, oh yeah, you were not happy about this one time you had a swimming lesson there when you were like 2, and the floor was raised instead of being lowered. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, thanks guys. Chives, leave the microphone alone.
I guess I should share one of my swimming stories then.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you have, so like that's I think part of why I have like a fear of water. It stems from that like childhood trauma, and it never went away.
I have a fear of the water itself. I just don't like open lakes, like for the fish and shit. But no, my story is, I'm a decently nice guy, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't harm a fly. Yeah, I was that kid that would like to push other kids off the top dock.
You're an asshole.
I was an asshole. I'm sorry. I don't even remember doing it. And that's how much of an asshole I am. But don't worry, listeners. I got karma'd really hard when I became a lifeguard and did this teaching and had to save hundreds of kids falling off the edge, whether that be from pushing, just slipping off the edge, or whatever else. Karma got me back for my sins.
I mean, you chose to be a lifeguard, but yeah.
It paid better than the McDonald's.
That's true, and it was easier to find a job because I don't know if people are super familiar with this, but we both were teenagers shortly after the fucking housing crisis in the early 2000s in North America, at which point a bunch of people who were in their like 30s and 40s took all of the jobs that take no skill. So if you were a teenager at that time, getting work was super fucking hard because a bunch of people like lost their fucking houses and their jobs and were working these shithead like minimum wage jobs that normally kids work.
Yep.
So if you could find specialized work, like, for example, being a lifeguard, which is what Jason did, or being a camp counselor, which is what I did. So, like, those are like the kinds of jobs you had to take because it's like, no, like a fucking 30-year-old isn't just able to readily do either of those jobs. It's kind of frowned upon if they're looking after kids at like a day camp.
For the lifeguard part, unless you're female, it's very odd for
you to be older.
You to be older.
Yeah, bro, it's always weird. It's the same.
I'm not trying to be sexist or anything.
No, the same thing. The same thing happens in
how it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing happens in childcare. If you're an older guy in childcare, everyone assumes you're a pedophile. Why is it that is that way, right? Like
that's because of stereotypes.
Yeah.
Anyway, but here's my promise to you: if you decide to play Resident Evil 7, I will play it with you or something like that. Whatever screen share, whatever.
Okay.
I think it's a really good experience.
So we could clown on the game during some of the moments then.
You could do it on stream or whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I played Soma with Miranda, mostly because she started playing it and then like she got too scared to get past a certain part of it.
I mean, I've already played it 3 times. I know normal and easy mode at this point.
Yeah, so like I played through the entirety of it and then streamed it through Steam to her. So it's very funny because I had to like hold back my reaction every single time I was playing it just so I could hear her freak out off the 20-second delay from the stream. It might be a little bit mean-spirited, but
it is what it is.
Yeah. Are you planning to play Village next?
I might actually start going back and actually playing some of the older ones I have. I got a few freebies from PS Plus. I think I got like 0 and 1. I might give those a whirl. I think
Okay.
2 and 3 might be on sale, so I might pick up 2.
Those go on sale pretty frequently, and Capcom actually does a pretty nice job with discounting their games when they've been out for a couple of years, so.
Yeah, might start really chugging along with the Resident Evil games, catch up. But that's that.
Alright, so I was playing Slay the Spire a bit. Boo, I know. But I finally got to a point in that where I feel like I have seen everything that game has to show me.
Oh my goodness, the roguelike ended?
Yeah, so I've played that for about 200 hours, and I've gotten to a point now where,
Those are baby numbers compared to your Monster Hunter.
yeah, well, so I gotten to a point now where I feel like I know reasonably when I start a run what cards to draft on all of the character classes so that I will win 100% of the time. I'll know if I've gotten to a point in a run where I have drafted the wrong cards and I'm just like, no, there's no way I can win. I just feel like I've gotten to a point where I know what all of the combos are and I know what all of the different interactions are, so I don't like if the game doesn't have anything new to offer me from like a gameplay perspective. Finally, after like 3 or 4 years, uninstalled it, and I went back to playing Monster Train because I wanted to play another card game still. I feel like I did Monster Hunter or not Monster Hunter, Monster Train dirty last year on my favorite games list because it was pretty low. It was competing with a lot of other games, but yeah, it's like one of the only games from last year that made that list that I went back and replayed. And with that knowledge now, I would actually bump it up to toward the top of the list because any game that I can go back to and play multiple times just that has a lot of value in my eyes. If a game is still fun, if it's fun the first time you play it, that's whatever. But if it's fun to play it like the second time or the third time or the fourth time you play it, it's like, okay, that means this is something special. So I've almost doubled my time in it from like 50 hours to 100. And I've had a lot of fun with it. The way that its classes are designed and the way that the game flows lends itself toward there being a lot more build diversity than what you get in Slay the Spire. So like in Slay the Spire, you have 4 different champions and they have different cards. And you kind of reasonably know what different playstyles and what different decks you can build with each of the different champions to have a successful run. In Monster Train, if you just play the base game, there's 5 factions. They added a 6th faction with a DLC update I haven't bought. So you choose one of them as your primary faction and one of them as your secondary faction. So there's like, if you just play the base game, there's 20 different combinations you can use as far as which primary you're using and which secondary you're using, and that will give you access to a bunch of different strategies. There is some overlap in terms, like if you're using, obviously if you just like swap which of the primary, so if you like use the red faction and the blue faction, and then you swap to like, it's like your red faction is your primary and the blue faction is your like secondary. If you swap to being the blue faction as your primary and the red second as your secondary, the difference between those two isn't super big. It's just like your champion card will change, but based on your champion card changing, that will change which strategies are actually viable and which cards are gonna play to that champion's particular strengths. So in that regard, I feel like the game has a lot more variety just in terms of what you can do and how you can play it. The other thing that's really cool is I feel like in Slay the Spire, a bunch of the cards, like once you've played it a couple of times, you're going to know what cards are like the best card, the linchpins of your particular run. And those
Is
are
there
the
more
cards.
variety in this one?
Yeah, you can fundamentally make a number of different cards your like linchpin card, and it can change on a run by run basis just based on what you get available to you. A lot of the time your champion is going to be a really good card, but your champion's not always going to be the star of your show. I played a run on the weekend where I had this guy who gains, every time he dies, he gains 8 attack. And then I made it so that I like augmented that unit so that it had multiple attacks, so that it would be able to die more quickly, which sounds counterintuitive, but then I also had that combined with a card that allowed me to, every single turn, I could bring a unit back from being dead, and that would power them up. So I would like put this guy down, and he'd already be like fucking strong as hell. He started weak, but like over the run, he cumulatively became a much, much stronger. And then I'd like kill him, and then I'd bring him back, and then he'd be on the field and he'd attack, and then I'd kill him, and then I'd bring him back the next turn. And at like one point I was able to duplicate the card as well. So like by the end of the run I had like 2 of these guys and they both had like 400 attack and they got attacked twice. So they were doing like 800 damage a turn, both of them. I fucking eviscerated the final boss. Just for context, 400 damage is an astronomically large amount of damage to do in one turn. Being able to do 800 is like fucking stupid.
Like, how much health do the enemies have, for context sakes?
For context sake, in the final boss fight, the weaker enemies that are like the squishies in the backline will have between like 10 and 30 health, and then like the chunkier guys in the front line will have between 150 to 200 health. And then like the final boss itself has, I think, 2,500 health. But you can hit the final boss before like the actual fight. Having 800 attack is an extremely large amount of attack. So those two just fucking ripped everything to pieces. And also, like, we almost killed the boss before the final phase of the fight started, which would have gotten me an achievement. I always get really close to killing the final boss before the fight actually, like the final wave starts, but I'm always just short, which always pisses me off.
You'll get there.
Yeah, it is possible to kill them before the fight
That's
actually
neat.
begins, and there's an achievement for that, for doing it against all the bosses. I only have it for a few of the earlier bosses, not the end boss.
It's the achievement called What Boss?
They're all like puns based on the boss's name, but it's always like puns like one of the bosses is Daedalus, and the achievement for killing it before the combat phase is Daedalus. Final boss is named Seraph, so like the one for killing it is Sans Seraph. But I've been having a lot of fun with it. I didn't really dig deep into the 1.1 update they put out. You have the ability to choose a primary faction and a secondary faction, but in the 1.1 update, they added a secondary commander and different starting cards. So it's not even just a choice of like, when you choose your primary faction, it's just like, okay, you have this commander and these starting cards. It's like you have the choice between like Commander A and starting card set A, or Commander B and starting card set B. For your secondary faction, you can also choose between card set A and card set B. So there's even more combinations to choose from and start from on a run, which helps lend itself towards having more variety. Plus, some of the new champions they introduced for some of the factions, I enjoy playing more than the default original champions for the particular factions. That's made playing some of the factions that I wasn't as keen on, it's made them a lot more palatable, and in some cases extremely fun.
Okay, so they've done a good balancing patch.
Yeah, fundamentally, they've just doubled down on what made the game good in the first place, which was to add more variety, more combos, more options for you to create crazy shit to pop off. It's kind of the big thing for me is that I go into a run and I'm never sure what strategy specifically I'm going to use to win, and I'm never sure what cards are going to be the hero, like the star of the run. At the end I'll have amassed certain card in certain combinations, and I've created some kind of crazy winning strategy that won't be necessarily 100% identical to something I've done before. I've had some strategies where I've been able to kind of pull off a similar strategy on multiple runs, but a lot of the times it's like, okay, this run to this run, I used like these completely different cards in both runs, and I still managed to successfully make it through, so.
Whereas Slay the Spire, you've seen the same strategy over and over again.
Yeah, like you kind of play the silent the same way every single time. Like you gotta get footwork, you gotta get some poison, and you gotta get a bunch of defensive cards, and you just kind of like sit on fucking your ass and let the boss die from poison.
I mean, that sounds fun, but...
Yeah, but it's like once you've done like 100 runs of that, it's like, okay, there's no other ways to really play this character effectively, so...
I mean, you got your money's worth.
Yeah, I would say I did, but it's nice to dig more into Monster Train and be like, it's just like a lot more variety, and when I go into runs, I feel like I'm not seeing, like when I go through the game, I can identify what units are like kind of better than other units, but you might not get like the S tier or A tier units in a particular run. So then it's like, okay, well, I got these units instead. With the options I've been given, how can I make this run successful? And I feel like that leads to a lot more interesting builds and a lot more interesting decision making, which ultimately makes the game feels a lot more fun. I don't know if I'll play it as much as Slay the Spire. Give me a few years with it like I had with Slay the Spire, and we'll see how much playtime and see if I've finally exhausted it. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I feel like more people need to play this game, and I think that because Slay the Spire was a little bit more simple and a little more straightforward, I feel like a lot more people jumped on it. It maybe didn't enjoy this one like a Monster Train as much, but I feel like the extra depth and complexity that comes with the larger amount of configurations lends itself to a far more interesting game. At least when you give it the time to really sink in, like let those systems sink in so you understand them enough to where you can reliably win runs over, like consistently, and get win streaks running.
Cool. So, as a palate cleanser, the last game on my list after playing Too Much Evil from Resident Evil was Slime Rancher. So this is a game where the whole part is that you're accumulating slimes that give you these plorts, which we can also refer to as slime poo.
I was gonna say, isn't it poo?
It's pretty much poo, and then you sell that for money in a market that's fluctuating, which if you put too much stuff in the market, the prices will go down, so you kind of need to unlock a variety. So there's 3 modes. There's adventure mode, casual mode, and rush mode. I'm only going to talk about adventure mode and rush mode because casual mode is just more or less a dummied down version of adventure mode. So there's really 2 modes. But adventure mode is you take your time, you have as many days as you want, and you're just unlocking stuff, figuring out where everything is. There's resources that you've got. Feed the slimes in their cages that are fruits, vegetables, or essentially meat, which is just the chickens. So you can have like the gardens that make the stuff for you, or the vegetables. And then you can have like a hen house for all the hens that you'll eventually like feed to the slimes.
Oh my god. This game is fucking evil. It's so cute, but that cute demeanor hides a satanic game.
It is, at least from the hen's point of view. A lot of things like hens, other than a few of the mixes that you can do. So the cool part about it is you can start mixing and matching some of the slimes to make bigger slimes. So you can have like a rad slime that's also mixed with a honey slime, so you've got rad honey, and they'll make 2 different plorts, the poop, that you'll then sell off, and those are a bit more valuable. So the more you go through the game, the more different slimes you're going to find, and you're going to be able to make a lot of money. You can use to buy upgrades for your farm, or essentially this membership club that costs a lot of money, but you get some relatively good stuff from that, including like a bit more, like a lot more health and stuff. So
I was gonna say, isn't this game like, just from what I understand of it, because I know Miranda played it and she really liked it for a stint of time. It's kind of like a farming game, or at least it's like a farming game in the sense that you kind of like start with nothing, and then over time you accumulate a shitload of money, make more money faster.
That's exactly what you do. You can explore the areas, and then once you find these huge largo slimes, if you feed them and too much, they'll burst, and then they burst into like some extra stuff that you can use. That's either like a key for unlocking new areas, or a teleporter sometimes. Spawn a bunch of slimes and the boxes, and that's it. But most of the time you get like a good extra reward for basically bursting them. If you mix up too many slimes though together, you'll start getting evil slimes that will contaminate the other ones, and then they'll ruin your farm. So you gotta make sure that they're all segregated properly.
Oh my god.
They will infect the other slimes. They don't even have to eat because if you feed, let's say that honey slime with the rad, that's like the larger one. If you feed it like a pink one or like a rock one, it'll turn into an evil one, because it's like, this is too much of a mix. It's not in my DNA to have too much. So
slimes can be individual, slimes can be combined, but slimes cannot be triple combined.
That'd be correct.
No, I guess you couldn't fuse 2 fusions. That would count as 4 slimes, right?
The way the game works, that would not be possible.
Okay.
So yeah, you gotta make sure you don't put the wrong slime in, because then your whole entire thing might be destroyed, and there's not really an easy way to get the slime out without going in and potentially getting hurt, because some of the slimes, like the rad, if you're in the rad field for too long, you get to 100%, you'll get knocked out, and then you'll have to sleep it off.
Oh no.
One annoying part is if you fall into the ocean, instead of just being like, oh, you lost 100 health, it's just like, yeah, your day's up. You gotta rest until the next day.
What the fuck?
Like, oh, come on, really? And sometimes because I'm at like 2 o'clock, it's like skips to 6 o'clock, and then it skips to the next day as well. So it's like it wasted 2 days. But funny part being, like, there'll be lots of resources. The slimes will have kind of been auto-fed so much that you'll have so many resources. You're like, oh, okay, that time skip was actually kind of beneficial. So during the later game, I'd like do my routine. I'd like feed the slimes. I'd make sure they're all stocked up, and then I'd sleep for 2 days, and then I'd go back and all the fruit would be made, all the vegetables would be made, and I'd just be able to kind of do that. So near the end of the game, it just becomes a bit more repetitious once you've figured out everything in the story mode, but it took probably about like 30 in-game days to get there, which they're on like a 24-hour clock. Still took quite a bit of time overall, and I did enjoy what I played. Rush mode, on the other hand, was interesting because it gives you all of the upgrades that you would have gotten through the normal gameplay, but it's got you set with 3 days of in-game time where you can get, if you resolve these requests that are also in the adventure mode, they give you resources. But in this one, it gives you some resources, but it also gives you an extra 12 minutes on the clock, so a half a day. So if you resolve all 4 of them, you can get more time. The goal being that you know exactly where you're going in this playthrough, like what slimes to get, what slimes to blow up, how to get through the level, and then build your farm up really, really quickly.
So the idea is it's kind of like a time trial mode.
It's basically a time trial mode. A roguelike time trial. No, I'm kidding.
Roguelike?
It's the same setup each time, so it's not roguelike. But yeah, that mode's a lot of fun. Once you kind of know 100% where you need to go, there was one achievement for getting $75,000 in like 3 to 5 days.
I feel like that kind of ties back into what I was saying last episode, where I said that like Dishonored was kind of boring, or Dishonored 2 rather, was kind of boring to me.
You had no rush.
Yeah, because there was no incentive to move forward, so you could just like take your time with everything, and that didn't lead to very interesting gameplay or very interesting decision making. Where it sounds like with this, the normal mode was kind of like learning the mechanics.
Yeah.
And then afterwards you go into this, and then it's like, okay, this is like a really fun way to utilize those mechanics. Once you have all of that system knowledge, you can just go through this, and like it pushes you into scenarios where you actually have to demonstrate what you've learned and maximize your efficiency.
I think I had to restart like twice because I knew I wasn't going to get anywhere because I was taking too much time. So, and then, yeah, as soon as you know 100% what you're doing, where you're going to go, what you're going to feed to the big slimes. And they also lowered the thresholds of all the bigger slimes, because then like the other mode, it was like 50 you need to feed, and then this one will be like, oh, you only have to feed this slime 1 chicken in order to explode them, or like this one only needs like 20 fruit to do that, and you're like, oh, that speeds things up even more.
Yeah.
If you finish the request, you get these things that you can use to feed these big gold slimes that aren't in the, or at least I didn't see, they were in adventure mode, and if you blow them up, they'll explode into a bunch of smaller gold ones. And if you feed them really quickly, because they're scared of you, you can't even put them into your vacuum and like use them as like stuff on the farm. Then you can like make a ton of money. That's great for your starting up really quickly.
Okay.
So you can build essentially the cages,
get your shit going basically.
Get your shit going really quickly and start. Because if you don't get a good start with that, then you're gonna be hosed.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get very far.
Okay.
There's a bunch of them. You get like enough to feed 8 of them, and I think there's like 10 to 12 or so gold slimes around. But they weren't in adventure mode, so you got to figure out where they are. But you most likely see them. They're in kind of decently obvious spots, especially the first one. It's like just past the main gate. So it kind of just shows you, hey, this one exists. And you should probably feed him because he'll give you like 300 for every golden slime poop that you sell. Yeah, it was neat. I am done with it. I've gotten all the achievements for that, which is cool. The last being the rush mode, and that took about...
I don't think Miranda has all the achievements in that game. How long did that take?
2 or 3 days, maybe?
I meant in-game time, but...
In-game time, for adventure mode, I think I got to like day 70. But I was also, as I was saying, like sleeping a lot just to speed up the money-making process.
Yeah, I'm just looking. Miranda only played the game for about, let's just say, 22 hours, and she's only got about half of the achievements in the game. I think she got bored of it before she hit the end of it.
There are fewer achievements in this one for the console. I was playing on console.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not the first time I've seen that. Hollow Knight has way more achievements on Steam than it does on PlayStation, and I think Meat Boy does as well.
I think I still got like 50 of the achievements or something like that in the in-game ones.
In fact, I think that Hollow Knight actually removed like all of the hard achievements on the console release specifically so people could actually earn the platinum. Like all of the Iron Man challenges that exist in that game were removed.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's called the Steel Soul runs in the actual in-game terminology, but they like removed all of that shit from the PlayStation release. And then, all of the speedrun achievements in Meat Boy were removed when Meat Boy got put on PlayStation.
Well, alright. That's it from me for Slime Rancher.
Okay, so last thing from me is Manifold Garden. So while Miranda was playing Subnautica Below Zero. I had the Switch on the weekend, so I was playing Manifold Garden when I wasn't watching her play Subnautica.
What is Manifold Garden? I have not a clue about this one.
It's a frustrating puzzle game.
We're ending on a bad note.
Yeah. It's like interesting, but it's also frustrating as hell. So it's a first-person puzzle game, and I guess it uses how do I describe how the puzzles actually get solved?
This is not starting off well.
Well, it's just like it's one of those games that's like when you play it, you'll understand what I mean by like how I can't exactly articulate like what its mechanics are. So like the idea is that you have the ability to change what surface you're standing on, and each surface has a color associated with it. Fundamentally, everything in the world is set up like a dice, like a six-sided dice or a six-sided cube. And each side of the cube has its own color. And when you're standing on that particular side, you can move blocks that are of that color. And you have to use that, like switching which side you're on and arranging blocks in certain orientations so that you are able to solve puzzles to move forward. So like that's the gist of it. So you're constantly changing what axis you're on and then moving colored blocks around to solve puzzles. Now, to that end, there are a number of spots in the game where it commits what I consider a huge design flaw in any puzzle game. In a puzzle game, you should spend your time figuring out how to solve the puzzle. You shouldn't have to figure out what the puzzle is.
Oh, so is this a case of like try and read the developer's mind on what the hell the solution is, or?
Yeah, kind of. So like because of how the game is designed, there's a lot of times where I entered places and I couldn't even figure out what the puzzle I was meant to solve was. So like when you don't even know what the puzzle you're solving for is, then it's impossible to even begin solving for it. Whenever puzzle games do that, I always find them incredibly frustrating. For me, I like puzzle games a lot better when you know what the objective is and you know what the mechanics or what the core ideas are, and you just have to figure out how to solve the puzzle, right?
Well, it's like saying that's a 1,000-piece puzzle, and then you're not given the image of it, and you're like, I don't know what I'm building.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of puzzle games where it's very, like Portal, for example. Like Portal, you just have to get to the end of the level, right? You always know exactly what your goal is. Your goal is to get through the door and go in an elevator. That's the end of the level.
And maybe get cake.
So you spend the entire game trying to figure out how to solve puzzles to that end, right? Like I gotta solve a puzzle to get to the end of the level, and then I get to go to the next level. In Manifold Garden, the levels are not as clearly laid out, and as such, there have been a number of times where I've been confused as to what I was meant to do or where I was meant to go. And in some cases, the puzzle was right in front of me, and I didn't even recognize it was right in front of me until like 20 minutes later. It's like fine, it's fun enough. It's just like it does that a number of times, and every single time it did it, it's one of those things where it's like if I see it once, like okay, that kind of pissed me off, and when I see it again, it's like a multiplying factor. So like the more often it happens, the more pissed off I get by it. Instead of it just being like the same level of annoying every single time, it gets like more annoying each subsequent time I see it. So that by like the third or fourth time, I was just like, this game can go eat a dick, and so can everyone who made it. Though I'm really close to the end in it, so I'm going to probably finish it off, but I'm not entirely sure if that's one I would recommend to other people, just due to that. It's certainly interesting. It just, I don't know, I'm not huge on puzzle games where part of the puzzle is figuring out what the puzzle is. I don't think that's valid design. I just find that really irritating. It's like in software development when someone just says, I have a problem, solve it, and they don't tell you what the fucking problem is, and they expect you to write.
Don't get started about that.
Right? Like that happens so often in software design, and it's such a fucking piss off. Someone's just like, I have this issue, or they won't even say what the issue is, and they'll just like, I'm having an issue, please fix. And it's like, okay, what are you having an issue with?
Use words.
Yeah.
Describe.
Like describe what the problem is so that I can fucking come up with a solution for you.
That's support nightmares for me.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that too, because I used to do support. That's Manifold Garden. It's fine. Whenever I play puzzle games that are like it, I always get the impression that the developers think they're way smarter than they actually are. That's me creating a narrative that doesn't necessarily exist, right? Like, I'm just looking at the game and going like, oh yeah, the people who made this are probably like super pretentious. But there's like no actual indication that the people who made it are super pretentious, so that's just me inserting like a narrative that I invented based on nothing into this game that But yeah, I don't know. It's like an interesting concept, and if you like those kind of puzzle games that are a lot more ambiguous about what is meant to happen and how you're meant to do things, then I would say that maybe pick it up. But if you're like me and you want to solve the puzzle instead of trying to solve what you're meant to do for the puzzle, then it's probably a hard pass.
On that note, uh, thank you everyone for joining us this week on the Frosty Canucks podcast. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at the Frosty Canucks. You can also follow this podcast wherever it's available, such as Anchor, Spoofy, or Stitcher. You can follow myself at Javim Animation, that's JAVM Animation, where eventually, when Amazon decides I'm worthy of having my bloody drawing tablet, I will start drawing again.
How many weeks ago did you order that now?
Too many weeks ago. Anyway, that's enough from me. Frosty, your stuff.
For everything related to my stuff, you can just follow me over on Twitter at FrostyLight. If you want to read my blog stuff, frostylight.ca. As we kind of alluded to, I wrote an article about It Takes Two and how that game made me cry. It is chock full of spoilers, but if you aren't too bothered by that, you can go read that. I also wrote my final bit about why I found Titanfall 2 a little bit disappointing, so to kind of fully explain myself on that front. If you want to just see my art-related stuff, you can go to my Instagram, which is at FrostyLight as well. I also haven't really been doing streams lately, so I'm maybe just gonna not plug my Twitch, but that's Frosty Light as well. So, if I do actually go back to doing some streaming, I haven't in the last few weeks because of
work and chives.
Yeah, work-related stuff and cat-related stuff, but I've actually enjoyed having the Fridays back, so I might continue not streaming for a bit. But yeah, that's fundamentally where you can find me. Frosty Light on basically everything. Go read my blog.
All right, with that, thank you all for joining, and stay frosty.